Today on our Pallet to Project series, we're going to take some offcuts and unused pieces from the pallet when we went to make our planter box, and we're going to turn it into a shelf. All I'm using here is going to be two of the short pieces and then that one board that had more of a live edge look to it, not one I wanted to use on the planter box because the gap would have been too wide, but I didn't want to get rid of it either. What I did want to do in making this shelf is cut off one edge of that to give me a nice smooth edge to go up against a wall. So I just took this over to the table saw, clamped it down, and cut my straight edge that way. This could have been done with a jigsaw, a bandsaw. Just you want a straight edge out when you get done with it. Now that I've got all the pieces that I want, I need to get a flat face, and I'm going to get a flat edge on these short pieces and then a flat face on that long piece. Well, I'm going to kind of skip through part of this. You can use a joiner, you can use a sander, it really doesn't matter. And these don't have to be even. I am going to keep going on my thicker piece until they get about the same thickness. But on opposite ends of a shelf, if you're off by a 16th or so, nobody's going to notice except you. And if you tell anybody, that's on you. What you really need to understand is we are usually the hardest ones on our own work, which is good because it pushes us to do better. But 99 times out of 100, no one else is going to notice unless you point it out. So just keep that in mind. We do try to get close on stuff like this, but with minimal tools, free wood, don't be too hard on yourself trying to get perfect. And while I'm doing this, getting my flat faces, I do want to thank you for those who have subscribed. If you like this content, please hit the subscribe button, hit like, share, do whatever the algos seem to think needs to be done at the time. It really does help the channel. I appreciate it. Now we're going to go for the shelf itself, and on this all I really care about is the flat top. So I'm putting the top down on the joiner to get that face flat. And I do want to throw out that although I will be doing some more on this Pallet to Project series, as I've got still quite a bit of wood left to include the supports from the pallet, I'm going to be starting a French cleat series. I'm going to be installing French cleats in my shop, and I've come up with a bit of a different design for my tool holders as well, so stay tuned for that. Okay, now that we've got our flat face, I'm taking the narrowest of the two, and it happens to be longer, so I'm going to draw a line at the longest point for the other one and just do a rough design here, something that I think looks pretty good for these small shelves. And take it over to the bandsaw. This is where in my video about the bandsaw and the reason I actually got it, this is the type of work that you can do it on a bench, clamp down with a jigsaw, but these corner clampings just aren't much fun, especially if you're just a little bit light on the clamp and it moves. You can use a coping saw, just takes quite a bit longer. So I went out and got the bandsaw for this particular type of work. And I'm just staying just shy of my line. Again, it was freehand, off the cuff, something I thought would look good on this shelf. And then I'll get the other piece, draw my line, and do the same thing. Now that I've got them both cut out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some double-sided tape. I'm going to tape these together and just use a cheap sander to sand them about flush. This could be done just as easily with a router and a flush trim bit. You could use any kind of sander. I like this type of sander because it's got the curve at the end, and this one has a little slack spot between the roller and the plate, so I can actually get different pieces of the curves. The main goal here is just to get them even. There is no right or wrong in the design, so just make it even. Once you get them even, you can do this with a sander. All we're doing is adding a round over to it. I've got this light little router table with a round over bit on it. Pull my two pieces off. That double-sided tape comes right off, no residue left at all. So if you're going to use a router of any kind for this job, be very careful as it is a small piece. Keep your fingers away from that bit as much as you can. Get one side done, flip it over, do the other side. Do the same thing for the other one. And now that we've got that done, we've got our round over on both sides going down our curve. And if we line them up properly, they're about the same size. Now what I am going to do on that shelf piece, I ran over the jointer to get a flat side on for the actual shelf on top. I'm going to take some sanding to it and kind of take out the rough spots, see if I can't clean up that what I'm going to be using as a live edge, just to make it a little smoother, a little more indoor like. And there we go. And now that I can see what it looked like as I was sanding it, I didn't sand the far right end and take it over to the table saw here and actually cut the shelf to length. And this has turned into a cover shelf, not an actual standalone shelf. It'll go over another piece on the wall, which is going to be a little different for the assembly, but this gives me the right length to get that part done. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little CA glue for the instant hold clamp part, and I'll put some Titebond 3 on there, spread it around. And notice I'm putting the supports on the very end of the shelf. This is what I view as the difference between a shelf and a cover shelf. Just spray it with a little accelerator, and we can move on to the other one. That's not going to go anywhere. I'll put up a picture of another actual wall shelf turned to a key holder. But normally I like to inset these supports. It just, in my opinion, makes it look better. Again, if you've got someone willing to pay for you to put it on the end, put it on the end. It doesn't matter. Starts off with what you think looks good and ends up with what they're willing to pay more for. So again, just some CA glue and Type Bond 3. Get it all put down, lined up. When you get it where you want, shoot it with a little accelerator, and you're done. Before I do anything else with this, I will let it completely dry. And here it is with a dark walnut stain and some semi-gloss polyurethane. This was the look they were wanting. And this is the live edge look on the front. As for attaching to the wall, this is the back of my key holder. I've put a keyhole slot on each support. And this is part of why you don't need to screw or nail in the shelf. If you're attaching to the wall on these supports, all the pressure is going to be down unless you decide to hit it from below. But we always tend to overbuild. You don't need to. The cover shelf that we built today, I believe will have the hooks screwed into these supports to hang on nails, which is why we didn't cover any of that. You'll also notice on this key holder, I went one step further and I routed out an edge around the center here, so if anything's thrown up there like pens, pencils, whatever, they won't roll off the front. And here's that inset that I was telling you about. Normally I inset the supports for the shelf. This doesn't look straight, but it actually is. Just a bad camera angle. But it's the exact same thing we built today. We just have rounded edges on the top with that routed out piece, and the support is moved in. This one has a cutout on the back for that keyboard to go through, and it's just glued in too. So, and this is another view of where that piece has been routed out. This very easily could have been done with, 3 separate pieces glued together, then attached to the shelf. I took a thicker piece and routed out to make a thinner shelf up on top. It doesn't matter how you do it. It's basically the same end result. All right, so if you made it this far, we've got our shelf, little live edge, little dust now. But the wood was free. It was actually just scraps off of free wood. Very little effort to make. Those do sell. You can just knock them out. What you charge for them is up to you. But in this case, I did make a change from what I normally do. I put these on the end. Not a big deal. Just knock them out however you want. But as I said in the beginning of the video, although I do have more projects to do, I have more wood left over from that pallet. It may end up being a combination indoor-outdoor project. But I'm also going to be going over into a French cleat series. I may end up doing a video on how this shop came to be and what shape it's in now and why, and how I'm going to try and move it forward. But I've heard a lot of things about French cleats as to why they're bad, and the one I don't hear a lot of is the one that has caused me the most problems, and that is I get a tool off, or one of my kids, grandkids comes along and gets something off, or it's an empty shelf and they knock it off. That's the bad thing about French cleats. So I don't mind the different tool holders. All that's kind of a given, unless you make a French cleat shelf that you can just put stuff on. You're making a specialized item. Of course, you're going to have to do it for each different type of item. But it's endless, the possibilities of things you can make, and then just stick it on the wall. But I'm going to be addressing my issue, and that is the whole falling off the wall part. But I'm going to be looking at doing a video on how I'm doing this, why. As I said, I don't want to knock it off, but I do want them to be easily removable. And that means no tools required to take it off and put it back on. But I'm also going to make sure if I want it to stay on there, it's going to stay on there. If it comes off, it's because I want it off. But that's going to be for the next set of videos. We'll be putting these up on the website as soon as I can get them fleshed out. We'll catch you then. If you like this kind of content, please hit the subscribe button. I don't know what the algorithms are doing, but I go to YouTube now and I don't find much of anything, at least not showing up in my feed. But please hit the subscribe button, turn notifications on so you'll be notified of the content, especially as I get into this next series. But I'm going to leave it there for today. Until next time.